everyone, welcome back to my channel. Felicia here. In today's video, I'm going to share with you guys some of my indoor houseplants that are showing me signs of growth despite the fact that the weather is changing. Today in particular, it's like in the mid 60s to high 60s. So a lot of my plants, if you've seen some of my past videos, I do have a plant stand. I also have like a plant slash bookshelf, and they're sitting pretty close to my window. So as you guys know, as the temperatures cool down a bit, you want to move your plants away from any drafty areas. So moving them from windowsills, moving them away from the window, away from any doors. You want to move the plants a little bit back because they're not going to like that too much, right? The cold weather. There's a lot more that you have to do in order to make sure your plants maintain during the cooler weather months, but I would say don't be alarmed if you notice a lot of your plants aren't growing. A lot of plants, not all of them, but a lot of plants do go dormant during the cooler weather months, meaning you're essentially just going to be watering dirt and soil. They're not going to grow. They're going to look a little bit sad and kind of like, is this plant still alive? Hello? But it is what it is. Plants go into a little bit of a hibernation during the winter months, but that's no need to be alarmed. It's just something that they do. There are a lot of plants that do continue to grow and do show signs of, hey, I'm still here, during those cooler weather months. So I'm going to show you some of my plants that are showing me signs that they have no intention of slowing down during the cooler weather months. So let's jump right into it. So in no particular order, let's go ahead and talk about the ZZ plants, since it's sitting right here behind me. I absolutely love my ZZ plants. I do have two ZZ plants. I also have a ZZ Raven plant. And as I was watering this plant recently, I did notice that there's two little stems kind of poking up out of the soil. And the ZZ plants, in my opinion, is one of those plants that is pretty easy to care for. It doesn't require a ton of light. It doesn't even need a ton of water. Sometimes this plant goes probably like up to a month at a time in between waterings for me. So I'm really excited to see that this plant is showing no signs of slowing down. Now again, it is the fall season. It's only in the 60s. I'll kind of revisit this video once the temperatures drop to the 20s or even the teens. But again, as I mentioned at the top of the video, as long as you move your plants away from any drafty windows or doors, they'll be just fine. The next plant that I wanted to share with you guys is my Alocasia zebrina. I feel like I don't talk about my Alocasia zebrina a whole ton of my channel, but it is doing pretty well. I've had it now for about 9 months. And since that time, it's given me about 5 new leaves. But one thing I've noticed about the Alocasia zebrina, and it may be the case for all Alocasias in general, whenever I see new leaves come in, an old leaf will die off. A lot of the time when you see a plant leaf or a stem or what have you, whenever you see it die off, it's just kind of making room for new plants. That's no cause for concern if you see your leaves falling off. But going back to the Alocasia zebrina, I was actually really excited to see some new growth out of that one because I thought for sure that would be one of the plants that would go dormant. But I would say I noticed the new leaf coming up about a week ago, and then just recently I saw that there's another one getting ready to pop out from one of the stems. So I'm really excited about that. It's such a beautiful plant, and it's grown pretty tall since I've gotten it about 9 months ago. So that is the second plant that is surprisingly showing me signs of continued growth. Next up is my Ficus elastica burgundy. I do have 2 Ficus elastica burgundy plants. I also have a Taniki and a ruby, but we're going to focus on my little burgundy here. I recently shot a plant growth video, and the Ficus elastica burgundy was one of those plants that I featured in that video. And even since that video, the plant has grown so much. So as you can see here in the little video snippet, it has 2 new leaves coming out, which I'm really excited about. And I sit my Ficus elastica burgundy, this small one at least, I sit it on my plant shelf directly beneath a grow light, so that's definitely contributed to the plant growth. So in the cooler months, as long as you're giving your plants enough light, whether it's by way of sunlight or through artificial light, your grow lights, your plants are more likely to give you some growth. And you also want to make sure you don't overwater the plants during the winter time because again, they don't need as much water. They definitely don't need to be fertilized, but just make sure the plants don't completely dry out to the point where you're forgetting about them completely, because that's not good either. Next up, I wanted to share my Chinese evergreen plant. I'll actually share a couple of them. Both of those plants are sitting on my plant shelf. Again, I have the plant shelf right next to my window. My red siam in particular, that plant grows like a weed. I feel like every time I water it, I see several new shoots. And it's probably a little bit hard to see in this little video snippet, but that's a pretty large plant. When I first bought that plant, I bought it as one, and then I eventually split it up into 2 separate plants, and I recently brought it back together as one just because I like it aesthetically better as one big full plant. And in my other Chinese evergreen plant, I bought that one as a teeny tiny tiny little plant rescue. I got it at Metropolitan Plant and Flower Exchange over in West Orange. The variegation on that plant is so gorgeous, and I can't wait to really see it grow a lot fuller, kind of similar to my red stem. Next up is one of my prized possession plants, my golden pothos. I am a big fan of the pothos plant. I have 2 golden pothos plants. I have a marble queen, I have a neon pothos, and I'm also propagating my neon pothos. I also have my Scindapsus plant. But my golden pothos, this one that I'm showing you here, it has grown so much since I've had this plant. I've had this plant for a little bit over a year now. When I first purchased it, it was pretty small. It was a pretty small plant. But the plant has gotten so tall to the point where I had to actually remove it from my plant shelf. Right now I have it sit on top of a bookshelf, which I kind of use it as a book and a plant shelf at the same time. And if I had to guess, that bookshelf is probably about 5 feet. And as you saw in the video snippet, the pothos is almost touching the floor. Really, all of my pothos plants are continuing to grow, and I don't expect it to slow down once it gets really cold. So that's another plant to look out for. If you have that in your collection, continue to care for it. You don't have to water it too much, but as long as you continue to give it the necessary care, that plant would absolutely continue to give you some growth. All right, and the last plant in my collection that I wanted to share that's giving me signs of growth is my Monstera deliciosa. Such a beautiful plant. It grows very easily. It also kind of grows pretty wide. And that is the plant that if you want it to grow upwards, you can do so by staking that plant. I think I'm gonna actually stake my plant pretty soon because the space that I have it in, I feel like it's outgrowing that space and it could definitely benefit from being staked. As you saw in the little video snippet, there's 1 new leaf coming out and there's actually a second one getting ready to pop out. Hopefully you can see it in the little video snippet, but there is a second one getting ready to pop out of that plant, and I expect that plant to continue growing even during the cooler months. All right, guys, those are all the plants that I wanted to show you today in my collection that are continuing to show me some signs of growth. Again, the key factors in making sure your plants are well cared for during the winter: move it away from the windowsill or any drafty areas, whether it's a window, a door. Just move it away from the draft because your plants do not like that in the cold weather. You don't need to water it as much, water it as little as possible, unless it's a plant that actually enjoys moist soil, like say for example a fern. Other than that, you definitely don't need to water it as much. And do know that if your plant is not growing, that doesn't mean the plant is dead or anything. It just means that it's just kind of taking a little vacation for the winter. And finally, just continue to do your regular care and maintenance. Clean the leaves, make sure the leaves aren't overly dusty, and also give it enough light. That's all that I wanted to share with you in today's video. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down for me in the comments. If not, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.